So one of the things that happens when you do a whole bunch of videos and a whole lot of people watch the videos is you get a lot of questions about subjects that are controversial and some that are not so controversial. Now, the question we're going to go over this morning, in my opinion, is not so controversial because the Bible is pretty clear about how we should be looking at it. Now, I get asked all the time, James, what do you think of these prophetic dreams, right? I know that's oftentimes a question that people get tripped up about because they see these videos where people say, oh, well, the president is going to get elected and it's going to happen on this day and the Lord showed me on this dream. Or maybe people talk about this guy that had a vision of all the things that would happen as a result of the illness, if you know what I mean. There's a lot of different claims that are being made out there. There are people that'll say God's going to come at this specific day because the Lord had showed them in a dream. And so I think we should probably address this really quickly because oftentimes people who talk about dreams on a regular basis are tied with false prophets. Now we'll talk about that in just a second because I know it's going to get a little hairy for some people, but let me just simply say this. Dreams can be used by God to communicate messages. Oftentimes those messages are personal messages and not necessarily corporate messages, but there are times where they can be used that way. We see examples of this, right? We see the Pharaoh having a dream, Joseph interpreting the dream. We've seen Joseph having dreams. And as you go throughout the scriptures, you see example after example, even in the New Testament, of people having visions or dream-like experiences, and God was always speaking to them and to many others through those dreams. Now, there's one thing that we have to understand. It's a very important caveat, and that's this. The Bible tells us that in the volume of the book, it is written of Christ. We know that. It's not a difficult thing. We have the completion of the biblical canon available to us. And so I would say that if you feel like God has been speaking to you, maybe through a dream, that you need to filter it through the Word of God. Because if the content of the dream doesn't agree with the Word of God, you have got a huge problem on your hands. And that is how we determine whether or not anybody is a false prophet, is by knowing what the Word of God says and seeing what kind of fruit that person might be bearing. As a matter of fact, today, Sunday, we are going to be going through that very subject. We're going to talk about false prophets and how we are to determine whether or not they're false prophets. We're going to cover that in the book of Matthew. So please make sure you jump in. We're doing first, second, and third service. I'm going to tie a link to that study at the end of this video. Very important that you become a part of this to sort of develop an understanding of what it means to know whether or not something is biblical. Tonight, we continue on as we go through our prophecy night. You're not going to want to miss it. We've got a lot of great stuff in store for you guys. A lot of wonderful things happening. So make sure you don't miss out. Love you guys. God bless you. Happy Sunday, by the way.